These are 3 things that you need to know if you want to start photography in 2024. You're just getting into photography, which is great. You probably just got a new camera for the holidays or Christmas, whatever. You just got a new DSLR, maybe a new mirrorless camera, or even maybe you're just starting out on your phone and you just want to take pictures, but you're not quite sure what these settings are on your camera. I remember when I was starting on my photography journey, I would go on YouTube and, search up what are these settings on my camera, all this, and then I would get a bunch of videos and these people would go into like super specific things, like you need to calculate this and that. And then I remember just being bombarded by like so much information, and at the end of the day I would feel like I didn't know anything just because there was so much that people would throw into it. So for you guys, I'm gonna make this simple just so you guys understand it and you don't have to get on that super complicated information which you don't need, because photography is simple, right? Okay, so the first one that you need to understand on your camera is the shutter speed. So that's gonna be on the bottom left of your camera. It's gonna say 1/ and then whatever number it is. So that's gonna be the amount that you're gonna be shooting at. All you need to know is if you want to get images like super crisp, like in action or whatever, you're gonna want to have the highest shutter speed. I would recommend somewhere between 1/250 or 1/400. That typically gets you the images super crisp, stops the motion, and yeah, it will get you those really crisp images. So some examples when you would want to use this high shutter speed is when you're taking pictures of like people or like items in motion, like cars, birds, animals, whatever. That's when you would want to use a high shutter speed. And when you're photographing still objects, that's when you can kind of tone down the shutter speed, bring it to like 1/50, 1/80, because these objects are not moving. So therefore you can sacrifice a little bit of your shutter speed so you can let more light come into your sensor and really get those nice images. Obviously you would have to factor in the fact that your hands move, so that's another thing you would have to worry. But for the most part, really high shutter speed, moving objects; lower shutter speed, still objects. Another way that you would want to use a low shutter speed is when you are shooting in nighttime, because you lowering the shutter speed means that more light can come into the sensor and therefore you can get better images at nighttime. This comes in handy when you have a mirrorless camera, as the sensors are a lot better. And DSLRs, they're not really that great for night photography, but you can still make it work. I know a lot of people that use DSLRs and they got amazing images. They did have to use a tripod, but like I said, you just have to go out and experiment, and this is how you'll learn most of these stuff. So the second thing that you want to know is ISO. You're gonna see the ISO typically at the bottom right of your screen. It's gonna say a different number depending on where you have it. You might have it in auto, so the camera does the work for you. But if you're shooting in manual and you want to adjust these things, basically what ISO is how bright you want your image to be. So obviously the lower the number is going to be the darker, the higher the brighter. So that's typically what it means. Simple as that, just how bright you want your image to be. Obviously when you raise up that ISO, you're going to get more grain because you're forcing kind of like fake light in a way into the sensor. Your camera is doing all that. So if you really bump up the ISO to, let's say, like 5,000 or 10,000, it's gonna be bright, but you're just gonna start seeing some distortions. Like it's just gonna be grain in the images. To make it simple, it's really how bright you want your image to be. Okay, so depending on what kind of camera you have, if you have like a DSLR, the ISO, you typically don't have that much space to play around with. With these new mirrorless cameras, there's a huge range in which you can play around with the ISO and get good results. Typically, a rule of thumb that I like to follow, if you're shooting during daytime, I don't bump it up more than 100. I have both cameras, which I'm shooting on in an A7 IV. I started off with the A7 III. As you guys can see, I have the A7 III right here, and I'm shooting on the A7 IV. This is how I started off with photography. This is an amazing camera. If you guys are able to purchase one, I would highly recommend it. It shoots amazing video too. It does shoot in 8-bit, nothing compared to the A7 IV, which now shoots in 10-bit. But this is an amazing hybrid camera for someone who wants to start photography and potentially, start getting more into videography. Highly recommend it. I would go on Facebook Market, just make sure, the camera is good, that everything works fine, and you can typically get some nice deals on it. Okay, so I explained that during daytime, I tried to not go over 100 for the ISO, and that is because during daytime you get so much light coming into the sensor, you don't need additional light. Like this camera, it can go down to I believe 50, so you might even be able to bring it down more. And this is where you get more experienced, a little more technical, and then you start using ND filters so that you can factor in that extra light that's coming into the sensor, which you'll tend to find that sometimes it is overblown, just too much. So this is when the ND filter comes into place. Basically what it does, you put it on the lens itself and it just darkens your image so that you can mess around with these settings that you have. Obviously I went over to shutter speed and now ISO. That brings me into my third one, which is aperture. To make it simple, aperture basically means how much blurriness you want on your image. Okay, so depending on what kind of lens you have, you are going to be able to change the aperture differently, and this is typically found at the bottom of the screen where it says F and then it'll say F something. So for example, this lens that I'm using right now is the 85mm and this one is a 1.8. So that means 1.8 is the lowest aperture that I can actually put on this lens. So that gives me that nice blurry background, which you guys can see in the video. This is the same thing that goes for images. So basically, the lower the aperture, the more blurriness is going to be in the background. The higher the aperture, you're gonna get more detail, so it's not really gonna be much blurriness in the background, and really just get more detailed. That's really comes to personal preference, what type of style you want to get into, but really that's really simple, depending on the lens that you have. Some might come at like 4.8. I think they have some at 4.0. All of the lenses that I have, typically I just like to get them at low aperture because not only are they sharper, they're quicker, the autofocus is better on them. You don't necessarily need to get the best of the best to get great photos. Honestly, don't get me wrong, even with the kit lens you can still take some really nice photos, but if you can, I would definitely recommend getting a lens with a low aperture so that you can get some really crisp images. So bringing everything back together, I went over the 3 things that you need to know to start photography in 2024. So we went over ISO, shutter speed, or it was the other way around. So it was actually shutter speed, ISO, and then aperture. Knowing those 3 things, you can start messing around, getting different type of images, and the possibilities are endless. I just started getting more experience. As I started going out and shooting more, you'll see that you can really get some really sick shots depending on what kind of settings you do. I 100% recommend starting in manual mode, even though it takes a little bit longer, but trust me, in the long run, it's gonna be worth it because you can be in different scenarios and you'll be able to switch the settings real quick and get those images that you want. So yeah, shooting auto is not bad, but I really recommend you starting in manual so that in the future you'll be able to get better photos. Let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of this video. Was this helpful or not? Was it simple, or should I do a little more simpler or whatever? Let me know down in the comments. It helps me so I can make more videos, hopefully more educational videos, because I definitely had to do a lot of research in the beginning, and I know it wasn't easy because people just go into really specific things. So I try to keep it as simple as I could, but yeah, let me know what you guys think. Also, I can do reviews on the cameras that I have, the A7 III. I can go into more depth on the A7 III, what kind of lenses that I have, what lenses you should get, what lenses I recommend. I can also review the A7 IV, which I'm currently recording on. I have both cameras. I was lucky enough to be able to learn with them. So yeah, let me know. I can do some reviews. Hopefully you guys got some value from this. Make sure to check out my socials. I will link them down below. Some of my work as well. Stay tuned. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to subscribe for the videos in the future that I'll be dropping. Try to share as much information, everything that I've learned over these past couple months with you guys, and hopefully get you guys on track for 2024 with your photography career or hobby, whatever. All right guys, take care.